Hey everyone, this is Kay White. Welcome to you. This is our Sparkle Zone bonus call. It is the 13th of August 2019, and here we are, and I can see some lovely names popping by. Jeffrey Hound, which, as you know, ladies, is Snowy's alter ego. So Snowy's with us live. I can see Elizabeth there. And I know a number of you are on the call as well, I can see. So you can see, I feel as if I'm kind of landing the space shuttle here. I have a big screen over here that shows me our conference line with lots of names there. And then I'm looking at the video here. I have my new special light. So hopefully you can hear me clearly. Can anyone just say, hey Ellie, I can see you just said, can you hear me okay? If you could just tap in the comments whether you can see and hear clearly enough, that would be useful before I get going. But it's nice to see you. Who's there? Nikki, nice to see you join. Can someone just say whether I'm coming across clearly and lucidly so far as the volume? Jeffrey Hand says, yes, okay, hooray. So ladies, this is really something that came out of 2 or 3 conversations with clients, both in the Sparkle Zone and the Golden Circle, asking me more detail. Hey, nice to see you, Faye. And yeah, asking me about the project that Snowy and I undertook this year based on Marie Kondo, and wanting to know more detail and stories. And, you know, Kay, I saw you post things on Facebook, but really what happened, or how did you plan it, or I've been trying and picking away at it. So it gave me an inspiration. And as you know, when enough people ask you something, you need to pay attention. When enough people tell you you ought to do something, you need to pay attention. So here we are in the middle of August in that kind of lovely summer slowdown, which I hope you're experiencing too. And I thought, well, this is the perfect time to slot something in that adds value for you, that gives you some ideas and some inspiration, and also a chance to share. So I am going to ask and open the lines on the conference line. I'm recording it on Facebook Live. It will be in our group. So if you have to hop off, then obviously you'll be able to catch it later. And I'm also recording it on the conference line because a number of our sparklers don't use Facebook. So we wouldn't want to miss out. They just won't see the photographs. So let me share with you, I have done something. I'm being really kind of quick and dirty in the spirit of absolute openness. This is a mind map. I use mind maps all the time. I draw the center subject and then lots of branches, just like a tree off it. And I have got these subjects to share with you. Why? Why now? Marie Kondo. Where to start? The evolution. Turning points. And lessons. So that's where we're heading. Snowy is going to join us live. He's going to come here and swap seats with me and share with you his story and his version of what happened in the experience as well. He's listening in live, as you can already see, but he's also going to share with you his stories and the experience of upgrading, really upgrading his garages from basically a scrapyard to a showroom. So let me share with you, first of all, I will ask you a couple of questions on the chat, and I would really on the comments. And as you know, this is absolutely in our private Facebook wall. The video is going to be popped on my YouTube channel because a number of colleagues, clients, connections outside of our groups want to know about it, but obviously only your first name will ever be used. And nothing will appear in the chat on YouTube. So I just wanted to reassure you of that. But I really, really want to encourage you, if this inspires you in any way, because this call isn't about clutter shaming anyone. It's about being open about an experience. And if you take something from it or you have something to add, then please, add it to the mix. So the reason this became so important to us, well, let's say to me, and then by definition to Snowy, was that my sister and one of my really good girlfriends have moved 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years through their personal circumstances, through moving countries, through choice, have moved. And each time they've said, oh my goodness, I cannot believe how much stuff I have. I've thrown so much away. I've got so much, so many toys, so many clothes I don't need. And I just feel, I cannot believe it. And when my sister moved back from Austria back in 2011, they didn't sort things out enough, even though they thought they had. And when they came to unpack this monster truck all the way that drove across Europe for them, they were unpacking empty beer bottles because they just hadn't sorted them out. So everything was packed. And I had all of these thoughts of these words of these girlfriends and my sister playing around in my head. And it was really playing on my mind. Snowy and I have lived in our home here in Essex for 17 years, happily in our home. It's quite a big house for just a couple and obviously 3 hounds. And gradually, as you know, it's easy to fill things up. You expand into wardrobe, you expand into cupboard space, you expand. And I thought to myself, how will we ever be able to move if we want to? What if I had to move? What if we had to move? What if something happened? I wouldn't know where to start. In the back of my mind, cupboards were full. They were unsorted out. They just had things put in them. You'd come to our home and think it was smart. I don't have lots of knickknacks. It's not really my style. But there were drawers, cupboards, wardrobes, sheds, lofts packed with stuff. Now, ladies, before I go any further, I am going to give you a bit of a health warning because there are a couple of well-placed swear words to come based on some of the true experiences that we shared, and they are absolutely in context with the emotional side of what came out of this decluttering. So I had started to, as I say, fret about this with the backdrop of these friends and thinking, well, I wouldn't know where to start. I knew, for example, that, in under one of our beds were all sorts of photographs and photo albums, and unsorted. They were just in piles. I knew that there was a picture with a broken piece of glass under another bed. I knew that there were wedding invitations, engagement cards. We've been married 18 years this year. And as much as that's lovely, I hadn't looked at them for 18 years, and I knew that they were there. So this was all playing on my mind at the same time as Marie Kondo, who, as you all will no doubt know, wrote The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying back in probably 2012. And one of my early clients in the Golden Circle, Judy, who was based in Canada, had read this book and recommended it to me. And I thought, oh, tidying up, who needs to know about that? But I read it. And based on obviously the connection and the recommendation, and I got a taste of tidying because Snowy and I decided to, at that point, this was in about 2013, 14, to do all my clothes. So I took all the clothes out, sorted them out, big stockpile of things I didn't want, bought new hangers, tiny felt hangers, which are life-changing in themselves, ladies, if you haven't ever used them. I bought them from eBay. They're all purple, so everything is all streamlined. And I had a taste of what that's like back in 2014, as I say, 15, 14, by sorting up my clothes. And then Snowy said, well, actually, I'd quite like to do the same. I'd like to get rid of all those plastic hangers that you pick up from Marks and Spencer's and Next, and you think that they're great, but actually they clutter up, they take up a huge amount of room. So those big jacket hangers just take up huge amounts of room in your wardrobes. So that was our taste of it. And then we stopped. So I've kept the hangers going. I've kept the color coordination that I've got going. But I have gradually bought more things and not weeded out others. And there was really a sense of, we have to do something. I want to do something now. And I know what to do because I've read this book. And then, ladies, I spotted that Marie Kondo, amazingly, in 2019, had a program coming out on Netflix all about tidying. Can you believe that this little, very spiritual, non-English speaking Japanese woman would have a hit show with Americans and showing them how to tidy up, having a translator? If you haven't watched it, I really recommend just borrow Netflix for a month for free, which is what another client did on my recommendation. She downloaded Netflix, signed up for a month free, which you can do, and then de-signed after she'd watched all of Marie Kondo and completely pissed herself off, as she said, because she said, where do I start? I really don't know where to start. And she is one of the examples of a client who said, Kay, please share a bit more about this because I want to do it. So having found a way that worked for us, this isn't by any means instruction, it's more suggestion and encouragement for your version of it. So while I take a sip of water, as you can imagine, ladies, I have my trusty sippy cup here, which is beautifully shiny. Where are you at? If anyone would like to add a comment, or if you want to put your hand up in the conference line just by pressing *2, would you just like to share where you are in your tidying journey? Whether you're, I know, for example, Mary has already been posting pictures of her shed that's been decluttered, and I know some of you are, on the way. So if any of you would like to comment or add something where you are in your life-changing magic of tidying journey, or if you're tempted, just post a comment or any comment that you'd like to add, and I can keep an eye. This is a brilliant sippy cup, by the way, as I'm on live. It's by Swig. It's metal, and it keeps things absolutely freezing cold or boiling hot. And it's so practical. I've had it for about 2 months, and I bought another for my sister and another for myself. So, okay, so far no one has raised their hand either. Okay, so where to start? That was it, really it. So Snowy, it started just after, between Christmas and New Year. Snowy and I went out for dinner, we were by the seaside, we were all relaxed, and I started to sort of have that voice in my head about, oh God, a new year, and what my New Year's evolutions, what am I going to do? And there's all that stuff. So Snowy and I had a fairly healthy squabble, I would say, by me saying, well, blah, 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 moving, blah, 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 my friends have moved, blah, 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 all our stuff, blah, 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 your garage, blah, 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 the loft. I started to sort of pick away at areas I knew were real pain points for us both. And Snowy, as can happen, went off slightly on the deep end. Right, that's it. Why don't I move into my shed and I will throw all my stuff away, all evidence of me, don't have anything of me around. I know that's it. I'll just burn everything and you can throw everything out and just put all your clothes. And I was like, no. So when he had come down from that position, I did show him a couple of episodes of Marie Kondo. And then I did say to him, why don't we make a plan? We're always better with a plan, rather than, as is so often the case, you run at something and think, right, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to get on with this now. And then you run out of puff, or you run out of time, or you run out of interest. I like a deadline. I always say to a client, I always say to someone who's working on something, pick a date. Pick a date by which you want this to happen. And then planets start to align around it. Decisions start to be made based on it. But you must pick a date, because otherwise it's something that goes on and you can put it off and you kind of get bored and you lose, as I say, the impetus. So we picked a date, where to start. The first was to pick a date. We decided to pick my birthday, which is mid-June. And this is, as you can hear, the other side, just before New Year's Eve. And so we decided, we got our holiday in January, there was Easter, there were big, and we looked at our calendars and we thought, okay, well, that is doable. That's 6 months. We've got big chunks of fun time. We're not going to book every weekend and drive ourselves nuts, but we are going to commit. So we could see certain weekends that were free and wide open, and we just put Kondo over the weekends. So Kondo became a verb in our house, to be kondoed. We're kondoing this weekend. How are you getting on with your kondoing? Hey Mary, nice to see you. And I know that you're on your kondoing journey yourself. So we picked a date, that's the first thing, and we picked some spaciousness. Now a client was saying the other day, you know what, Kay, if I started now and kept going, I could have it all done and dusted for Christmas. I would have this fantastic feeling at Christmas when all our family and friends come, and I would have it done by then if I commit to that kind of idea. So that was the first thing, to pick a date, to also look at certain times that would work best. So we agreed, you know, Easter, we're going to go to the seaside. We're not going to work constantly at it, but we are going to have big chunks of time. And at the same time, as well as those big chunks of time, we also said, well, we'll pick away at it as well. You do a drawer in the kitchen one evening while you're, you know, waiting for the rice to boil, or you know, come home from a dog walk, and while the dogs are feeding, just you know, tidy up a cutlery drawer, which is exactly what I did, picked away at things. Now, we did come up with a bit of a kind of fun throwdown at the beginning, which we didn't always stick to. No judgment, no swearing, and no shouting. Because the idea of the judgment was, you know, I can't believe you've got all this stuff. Why have you bought this? Where did you get that from? Oh, for heaven's sake. So there was that. The swearing, well, hey, you know, you can imagine there were a few FFSs going on. And shouting, just getting cross with each other. So we decided, again, in the spirit of planning, to start from the top down, because it's in January, it was cold outside and wet a lot of the time. So we thought, well, hey, the loft, the garage, at some point we'll have a look at that, but the loft first, let's start and get something done with a big impact. And we also both knew, and I will say this, I have given you a health warning, our loft pissed us off. I had passed all the Christmas decorations up to Snowy to go back. He had looked at it and thought, you know, FFS, I can't move up here. We knew roughly where things were, but they were in clumps rather than neat areas. So we started with the loft. We agreed on a Saturday morning that the loft would be our first part. We shook hands, no judgment, no swearing, no shouting. And that went out the window fairly quickly, because the loft was just full of old, for a start, old boxes that were flattened when we moved in. And we kind of knew this, but, you know, just in case when we move again. Well, 17 years on, they're damp, misshapen, musty. You wouldn't want to put anything in them. And they were all in one corner of the loft. Suitcases that had broken zips, but that had fancy dress in them, that could be all kind of rearranged, put into nice, neat bags. I was advised to buy some containers, so I was constantly on Amazon buying bits and bobs to store things in that were more practical. And when we got up into the loft, we got to the stage where we put a sheet down on the landing carpet, and so I said, I am not taking this all through the house. Open the bedroom window. So one of our bedroom windows goes straight out onto the garden, and we were literally throwing things out. It sounds really brutal, and it kind of was, but it was also very satisfying. And Snowy had, bless him, and he knows this, I think it's funny, but it's also quite shocking, in the loft, a tea chest that had moved with him from when he moved from his home before he moved into the flat where I met him. And then when I moved him to the flat and we moved here, he brought this tea chest with him. And hey, Kathy, and when the tea chest came with him, we both knew that on the side of it, it said fuck nose. So that tea chest that still said fuck nose, again, I have given myself a health warning, was still in the loft. And that tea chest got sorted out while Snow was sitting in the loft, slightly despairing, go-kart trophies he'd won, you know, fair play, but you didn't need 20 of them. Superbike magazines with women draped all over them, as they used to be back in the day, but clearly aren't anymore. So many of them were literally thrown out of the bedroom window, gathered and then put into the shed, because again, you've got to sort them out again, and then recycling rubbish, repurposing, giving away. So we started with something that would give us an immediate win, if you will. And again, rather than doing everything in one hit and thinking, right, you know, we keep going, we stopped after the loft, hoovered it out, tidied it up, and then had this incredible sense of lightness. This is why I thought this call was so significantly named Let There Be Light, because when we knew that lurking in the loft, which we sleep under, there wasn't this chest with fuck nose written on the side of it, we felt as if we had really achieved something. I just thought, oh my gosh, if if something meant that we were going to move or we decided we wanted to, the loft isn't an issue. We can send somebody up there and just say, 15 minutes, you'll have everything out. Boxes, client files, all sorts of things that I keep, obviously, all beautifully labeled now. The Christmas decorations all piled in their own pile, the suitcases in their other. Snowy can wheel our suitcases up and down the centre of our loft where before there was no room. So that was a very quick and decisive win that got us going. And then we planned, not necessarily, I knew that Snowy would have to do Petrol Central, his garage. And I will say, ladies, I did, and Snowy knows I did this, I did start to do that thing that women can do by planting lots of suggestions. I went on Pinterest. Pinterest is a fantastic place, by the way, for inspiration. Go on Pinterest and look at bathrooms or bathroom mirrors or bathroom cabinets or tidying or garage storage, and you will find fantastic images that, of course, I was sending to Snowy. And I sent Snowy a picture of what his garage could look like, storage in a garage, flooring, fantastic lighting. And we called it garage porn, basically, because I would send him these links of these incredible pictures that I know got his interest. I wasn't sending him a picture of a tidy cupboard full of handbags, which he really didn't care about. So I knew that I would be doing my office, Sparkle Central. I have these beautiful cabinets. There are 9 of them. They're like a noughts and crosses box. And they were okay. But here's the thing. I knew, again, that lurking in them were lots of things that were no longer relevant and no longer needed. So my first photo to show you is just behind here are these 2 cupboards, and they go 3 up and 2 across. That's what they look like, which, again, you can see they're labeled, lots of files here. You can see the boxes. You can see I've books, too many books, labeled up here. I love my books, lots of gizmos, files. That's what they look like. Then the weekend that it was office and Petrol Central sorting, it started to look like this as I literally took hold of things, and I knew I wasn't keeping them. They were either going to be burnt or shredded. They went that way, and then eventually it ended up like this river. And the files were broken, or they were, you're tolerating files that don't close properly. And the dogs were running for cover as I literally despaired of myself. Now, one of the first boxes I sorted out was that brown box with lots of notes and sort of love letters, if you like, pictures of our dogs that Beatrice and friends have drawn for us, things like that. And the first thing I saw on this wet Saturday was this dog, picture of a dog, one of our dogs, Gina, who had died in 2014. And I just burst into tears. I looked at it because it was so sweet and I was feeling so overwhelmed. And so I went into the garage in floods of tears just because it had just touched me. And Snowy's standing there in his garage, overwhelmed. And he was like, I can't help you. I don't know where to start either. So anyway, we had that moment. And there were a lot of those moments where something was discovered that I didn't know I had, but that I do remember. And that cupboard now looks like that. So as I say, I've got spaciousness. Down here, it's nothing. Up here is a big, area dedicated to not very much. And that's just a quick example. So you'd walk into my office and it would look like this because the cupboard doors would be shut. But I knew that was in there, and now I'm happy and very proud that that's only in there. So that's another example. And at the end of this weekend of my office, I felt like I could take on the world, if you will. I have found things, I've let things go. I think that's the thing. It isn't, Marie Kondo says herself, it's not about getting rid of things, it's about deciding what to keep. It's a big difference. Deciding what to keep. And she talks about what sparks joy. Well, I heard Snowy, this does not spark joy, this sparks bullshit. Because he would be in his office or in his garage sorting the things that really only he can sort out, versus some of our drawers or our dining room, for example, tablecloths, napkins, all sorts of stuff that just needed sorting and letting go. But this is the thing, you decide what to keep. that was the shift for me as well. It's deciding what's important and what sparks joy, which is that what gives you joy. Now, you can't say necessarily that a set of screwdrivers gives you joy, but they're useful, they're practical, and they're needed. The same with my kitchen area with all the sort of pots and pans. They spark practicality and nurturing. Do they nurture you? Do they feed you? So being able to find things is huge. Now, anyone who has any comments or any things that they've experienced in this, please just do pop it in the comment section, because I am keeping an eye on it. And if you'd like to hop on the conference line, I'm very open to hearing you. I've got a couple more photos to show you. I'm going to keep us on time. Let me just check my notes and have a sip of water. It's nice to be with you live. I hope this is all coming out. What is anyone thinking or has got any comments to add so far? Oh, it's very quiet now, ladies. I know that this inspires you, although I know a lot of you are on holiday. So hopefully we'll catch up on the recording. So one of the things Marie Kondo says is about the space in which you live should be for the person you are becoming, not for the person you were in the past. And that was one of the big things for me. I realized that a lot of the clothes I was hanging on to that are good, nice quality, aren't me anymore. I don't wear all sorts of things that I used to wear. I don't wear, amazingly, as much sort of glitter as I used to. These were my necklaces. And that was just one set of them behind the curtains in our bedroom. So it's actually quite a smart idea to keep. These are little jewelry holders that I got from Primark, but you can buy them on eBay. And I had a ton of necklaces hanging there. And on the other, so they were behind one curtain, and on the other side were the long necklaces, but these are the short necklaces. This, with my niece's help, is what went to the charity shop. They were absolutely thrilled to have those bags of bits and pieces, all beautifully bagged up. And this is what my long necklaces now look like, which is streamlined. I can see them. I still have quite a few, but I do wear a lot of them, and I love some of them, and they're not cluttering up anymore. I know that they're there. So again, it's an example of, you know, the overcrowding and keeping, you know, deciding, there we go, that way on, deciding what to keep versus chuck things away. And each necklace had to sort of compete with the other to be saved, if you will. And those have now gone and they're being sold. And I actually saw 2 of them in our local charity shop on models for about £4 each. And I just thought, well, happy days, £8 to the charity shop when they were hiding behind my curtain and I didn't even know I had them. So another set of photos for you, just briefly. This is yeah, I've got 2 more for you, and then I'm going to hand to Snowy fairly soon as well. We have something we call our bog of fame. It's not necessarily very elegant, but it is actually our downstairs loo. We have photos all around it, and people love going in there, even from the gas man, and people we don't know very well go in and talk about, oh my gosh, some of these fun photos. So this is what it was looking like. Old frames. The gaps, ladies, are where friends of ours have split up. And so friends would come around and they didn't want to see each other's faces. So I've had to take them out. And I hadn't given the time or the thought, and I knew it looked crappy with all these different photo frames. So the gaps were there for a legitimate reason, and it needed a rethink. But again, I just didn't give the time to it. And every time I would go in there, it was like, oh, this irritates me, it looks crappy, it doesn't look good. So I knew that this was on the Marie Kondo time itself as well. So what we did was I took all the photos down, and for a while then cleaned the whole space, took all of the photos out I wanted to keep, took all the frames apart, and put all the frames that were savable straight off into a charity shop. And again, a lot of them are good quality, they just were all different and mishmashed. So then I went on to Amazon, and I found, no, onto Argos actually. Yeah, to Argos. And I found these photo frames. There are 12 photo frames all together in vertical and horizontal. They're 6x4s. I went on to freephotos.com, which is this fantastic little app where you just pay for, no, Free Photos app, which you just pay for the delivery. So for £1.50, I got about 40 photographs printed. And then Grace and I spent one Sunday afternoon chatting and putting them into these frames to go in the loo. And now this is a very quick trip into our downstairs loo, one of the walls. And you can see there's space. So as we fill out the other ones, we will move these together and they can go up. But I can't tell you the difference, how light it feels to look and think that really does us and our friends justice. We've had fun finding new photos. There were photos of, you know, children that were so much older that there wasn't, you know, it wasn't relevant. A couple of kiddie photos, and then you need someone up to date. So again, letting go and allowing the evolution has been really important. And what I think it's done, I wanted to share with you, it has really been both spiritual. It's been a spiritual experience, a physical experience, and an emotional experience. Physical, literally, because it took strength, it took literally other people's help, holding ladders, fixing things, particularly in Snowy's garage, which he'll tell you about. Emotional, because we found stuff. I found letters from boyfriends when I was 14 in a box in our loft. And I knew I couldn't just go whoosh with them. And I also knew I couldn't keep them. What was the point? I hadn't looked at them for who knows how long, 35, 40 years. So on one Sunday afternoon, as part of Project Kondo, I sat on the sofa with a cup of tea and read them. And I went through them and I just chucked them and I kept them and I chucked them and I kept them, depending on what I felt about them. And this box, hey, she said with ex-boyfriends, I was 37 when I met Snowy, or 36 when I met Snowy. I had been around the block a few times. I had these amazing cards and photographs and, you know, lessons as well. People that I'd hurt, people who'd hurt me. And it was, again, emotional, because I thought some of these people aren't actually alive either. I don't know where they are in the world, and wow, they've just been sitting in my loft. So again, this box went down to this lovely little Fortnum's box about this big, and there are a few really nice bits that I've kept that I now know I have. So that was emotional and spiritual, I would say, because you realize how, well, I think I've said this before, certainly as you get older, the stuff that you need is relatively little in comparison to what you actually have already, for the most part. And the experiences that you want to share with others and do and share with each other are so key and become more heightened. And in our vicinity of age group, we start to lose our parents' friends, divorces happen, kiddies leave home. And of course, then we get to the age where our friends start to go. And you know what? You realize, I don't need to sit here, you know, sorting all this stuff out or hanging on to this. I need to be out. I need to be doing things. And that's how it's affected both of us as well. Looking at what we have and really loving what we have and knowing that it's essentially enough. It's also made us decide, you know what? We don't want to move. We want to make our home the best we can. Love it, look after it. It cherishes us and nurtures us, and we've loved living here. Why do we want to move? Now we've got it into the state that we have. And the word streamline has been one of my words this year. Streamlining my business, streamlining my life, streamlining my friendship, streamlining my outfit, streamlining. And we've streamlined our home, and it's made the difference in feeling comfortable at home. Now I can see some oh, Mary, hang on, we're at perfect timing. Relocation on the horizon. I know, Nikki, you have. Nikki's moving from Ireland, aren't you, Nikki, back to the UK, and you will have some good sorting and some perfect time to shed, if you will, and let things go, decide what to keep. So Mary, I sorted out my bags and costume jewellery with Grace's help. I literally held up necklaces, or I looked at things, and I did, I put them all out on the bed. First of all the short necklaces out on the bed, and then literally a big pile going, staying, and then Grace would hang them up for me. So I didn't do that part on my own, but I could have done it on my own. It was just fun. I would have had the radio on. When I was doing some of my clothes, I made a point of having a really lovely album on, I had it music loud, and I had, which is what I did when I did my office, I had really loud music. I had the Foo Fighters playing, which I love, and it was all kind of energetic and kind of got me in the mood. So that's how I did my costume jewellery, and you could obviously hear the recording. And Ellie, you didn't manage to do it when you moved house, and you still have unpacked boxes 3 years on. I hope you haven't got what's written on the side that Snowy had what's written on the side. Probably you won't have, because you're more organised, but nevertheless, you haven't unpacked those boxes in 3 years. So I would encourage you, when you get to that stage, to just allow yourself, without judgment, to open them up and think, you know, do you still spark joy? Have I missed you? Are you the person, you know, are you fitting in the person I am becoming now? And you'll make the decision. And it will be interesting to see and understand the difference it makes to you. Now, where are we time-wise? I want to just keep an eye on things for you. So what else? So Nikki, I'm not sure how you're going to start. You have a little kiddie as well, but setting aside the time, really making the time, putting it in your diary. Excuse me, I'm going to have to cough. Putting the time in your diary was the turning point, because it's very easy to think, oh no, I'll just, you know, nip to the shops, nip to the cinema. No, it's a date. It's like you do at work. You commit to a project, and you know that the outcome is going to be special. So we had a kind of plan down. The loft, the shed, there was a garage plan, there was an office plan. We both got very overwhelmed. I got really overwhelmed in my office. I just like, oh my gosh, how did I get all this stuff? And I also got very overwhelmed in one of our spare bedrooms when I saw these incredible amount of books. Snowy says my workbooks are more like shelf development than self-development, because I love books. I don't read the whole book, but I will reference them. And sometimes I don't want a Kindle. I want the real thing. So let's just now think about those overwhelm moments where you have to pull it back, and you have to be kind to yourself. So I'm going to invite Jeffrey Hound, also known as Snowy, to join us. But I just wanted to show you, ladies, why he's coming down the stairs, because he's been watching on Facebook in his office, which is also sorted out. That was my makeup drawer. Very unimpressed. This is now the essence of my makeup drawer. My Charlotte Tilbury bits, all laid out, tidy and clean, and something that I'm really proud of. Now, just bear with us, ladies, as I hand over the various gizmos that Snowy needs, because he's going to tell you about Petrol Central, and also any comments that he has based on what I've said. So let me hand you the phone first. You just put that on your head, and put that in your pocket or on your belt. And ladies, I'm going to hand him this microphone so that it's clear for you on Facebook, and I can come back on the telephone. You can pass it back to me, can't you, Snow? Yeah?
Yeah.
So you just need to sit yourself down, and you're looking at that one there. And this is Snow, the snowman.
Okay then.
Okay?
Right. Here we are. Okay, so I can't see you. I can see myself. I've just noticed, actually, got a few greys coming through there, which is unusual. Anyway, so my part is Petrol Central, and my garage has always been an important place for me, mainly because I love all things petrol. Anything that is powered by fuel and that I can tinker with is just something since I was about 3 years old when I learned to ride a motorcycle, and ever since then those things have been important to me, and the space that they've been kept in has been important to me. But of course I have accumulated, and I've accumulated all sorts of things to the point where I didn't really know what I had, but I knew I had a lot of stuff. And so for me, when we had the conversation, which was about tidying everything up and doing a condo, I was probably more concerned that I would be overwhelmed with everything that I had to look at and everything I had to go through. And in a way, I just didn't really want to do it because it seemed like a lot of time, hassle, effort, and it was just something I decided was a good thing to put off. However, as you've already heard, I was bombarded with various pictures of fantastic garage spaces, and I sort of thought, if I can get rid of some of the things that I either won't use or for some reason have kept and they meant something at a moment in time but don't anymore, that it would create more space for me, A, to enjoy what I had, but also potentially to bring some more things into the garage that I couldn't have fitted in before because it was full up with rubbish. So because the master stroke was choosing a long period of time between the start and the finish, because to try and do everything too quickly, I thought would have done two things. First, it would have put the pressure on to have everything done within a short time frame, and that becomes harder. And secondly, I thought that if you do everything quickly, you're likely to throw away things, discard things that perhaps in that moment you were happy to lose, but you shouldn't really in the long term. And that was a lesson I learned when I tidied out my mother's house, and we threw away so many things that I wish, if I'd had the time again, I would have kept. So armed with those things, the first point of contact I had was with my friend who is a builder, who I asked to come around and have a look, because I knew that I wanted the floor painted, I wanted new lighting, I wanted the walls painted, I wanted the shelves taken away and replaced with cabinets. And looking at the different types of cabinets I could have had, I decided to go for something called curtain door cabinets, because they open like that rather than towards you. And if they open like that, it means you can get closer to them without worrying that they're going to open and hit something. So that was a useful thing. And I found a person that would do that for me. But when the guy came around to have a look originally at the space, he brought with him his lad. And his lad was looking in the space, and I said to him, "What do you think?" And he said, "Well, I wouldn't keep my cars in a place like that." And that was quite telling, because I hadn't realised that before. And to hear it from someone else's mouth made me think, you know what, this is definitely time. And I will show you a panoramic photo of what my garages looked like before the work started. And there we go. So you can see there are a number of factors. First of all, I've got all sorts of things hanging around up on shelves. I had one strip light, a small bulb and another strip light, which meant that the place was pretty dingy. I had motorbikes underneath, bits of rag and stuffed away, a ladder that I was never going to use, an old door, and various things that I'd kept. And if you look a bit closer, you can see all sorts of things. And it was a bit horrifying to look at when I realised how bad it was, because I'd been used to it. And when you get used to something like a creaky door, it's just very easy to get used to it. So I didn't see how bad it really was. Anyway, Dave, my friend, who is in the back garden in that photo there, what he was doing at the time was building me what can only be described as a bivouac, which is a brilliant contraption. He bolted it to the back of the garages, and it was a wooden frame covered in a tarpaulin. And he said, what you need to do is get everything out of the garage and put it in there. You don't need to throw anything away, just put everything out of the garage so the space is then yours. And then you can sort everything from that pile into what you're keeping and what's going to be thrown away. So another friend of mine came around to help me move everything, and I was making a pile of things to throw away, which was quite small, and a pile of things that I was keeping, which was quite big. And he just said to me, "Mate, I don't know why you're keeping all this crap, because you've got half a bag of screws and they don't really match each other." He said, "If you need some screws, just go to the shop and buy some. All this stuff you've got is rusty and horrible and you're keeping it for a reason. Just get rid of it." And that was quite good as well, having someone else there who was able to if you like, act as my conscience and tell me that I had half a bag of cement that I had kept for longer than we'd lived in the house, probably 20 years. At some point, I must have done a job that I needed some cement. I had half of it left. I decided to keep it for no reason other than it seemed bad to throw it away. I've never used it since. I probably will never use it. So that was one of the things that we just didn't keep. And so when we got to the stage, everything was outside. The garage was then emptied. I ordered some cabinets which arrived, and we went from that to that. So this is halfway through. You can see that we've got the cabinets that have been delivered here, and that I'd put them in the place that they were going to be. You can see that the lighting is still the same as it used to be, and the floor and the walls aren't painted, but the room is empty. And that, well, except for the bike, because I couldn't get it through that doorway at the back, and there was nowhere else to put it. But you can see phase one was just looking at the space that I had and realizing I had quite a lot of it, and that we needed to do something with this space to make it the best we possibly could. And then we had the weekend when I had to sort out everything that was in my bivouac that weekend, because on the Monday the guys were coming to paint and do all the other things I had to do, and I needed to get rid of all of the things that I'd accumulated outside. And that was the crunch point, because it was a bit wet, it was cold. It was a Sunday morning when I went out there, having emptied everything on the Saturday, and I just couldn't get going. I just couldn't I didn't know where to start. It was just a pile of things, and I just didn't know where to start. I was a bit overwhelmed with everything, and for a moment I just thought, you know what, I'll just put it all back and I just won't bother. But then Kay came outside, saw that I was in a bit of a state, didn't know where to start, what to do. She then turned the radio on, so I had some music in the background, came back with a cup of coffee and a peanut butter sandwich, and just said to me, why don't you just start at one end and move through the other, make a pile of throwing away and a pile of keeping. And then I was away and I did it. And actually it was fun. When I got to the end of the day, I had 7 loads in a Land Rover to take to the dump, and quite a small pile of stuff I was going to keep, which were things I really was going to keep. And I made a promise to myself that I would never go back to hanging stuff up in the ceiling. Here you can see I'm propping things up and hanging stuff on the back on hooks and everything else. Gone. Nothing was going to hang up. It was going to go away, be neat and tidy, and I would know where everything was. So once we got to that stage, the guys came in, painted the floor, they painted the walls, they put the cupboards up, and they put new lighting in for me. And now, to remind you, we went from that to that. And I hope that you are saying, wow. I bought myself a new workbench, which is here, installed it in the corner, a new tool chest. I put one shelf up, which was this one here, and then everything else went into these cupboards up high, in this case, so that I could park my motorbike underneath at the back. You can see all the new lighting systems at the top, 12 sets of lights instead of the rubbish I had before, and all the walls are painted. That's the electric system. I had extra power points put in here and over here. That's a bank of power points, and in fact you can't see it, but on this wall here, but on that side of it there were more power points. And suddenly I had what can only be described as a showroom to show off. I had a blind put on the back door, which is not in this photo because it came later, and just looking at it was absolutely delightful, because now I realized here is a space that I can enjoy and love. And then I got quite protective to the point where I wouldn't let anyone come in there. I wouldn't let anyone, I was a real Jeffrey hound, guarding my territory, and I didn't want rubbish in there, and I didn't want the bag of recycling ready for the weekend. So all of those things, I couldn't look back now and think how I had a garage in the state that I had it for so long. And only because I can now look at what I do have and realize how much better it is. And you can see the difference there. I can't even begin to compare one with the other. It's just a different place altogether. I have not had one instance since that was finished, which was the 29th of March, that I've gone to find something and I realised I'd thrown it away, because I didn't know half the stuff that I had. So to realise I didn't have it anymore, it wasn't possible, because I found things that I just kept and collected and brought with me on the way, and none of it has been missed at all. I've also inspired the person that came to help me to begin with to start the same job on their garages. And I suppose, before I tell you about the health and safety issue, the only thing that I can say is that in a way, I feel a slight Stockholm Syndrome. And the Stockholm Syndrome comes from the people years ago who were kidnapped and then fell in love with their kidnappers and didn't want to be released. And I have a Kondo syndrome, although sometimes I wanted to push her over. But now I feel that I've tidied and sorted and it all looks great. And I sort of miss the fact that I haven't got another drawer, another cabinet, another something to tidy. But what that inspires me to do is keep everything in neat order that I currently have there, so that I don't get back into, oh, it'll be okay, I'll just stash it, or I'll put a hook up on the wall and hang it up. So finally, on the last day, when everything was finished, it was a Sunday, and I had a friend over who was helping. And there was one more big plastic bin of things that had to be put up into the loft of the garage. And it was the last thing. And I said to him, why don't you go in, have a shower, because we were all going out to lunch. I'll just do the last thing and we'll be there. And it was you could have made a film of it in terms of it being a health and safety warning. Because first I started with an old ladder, which I hasten to add I no longer have. And the old ladder had 3 rubber bungs on 3 of its 4 feet, but didn't have one on the last one, so it was slightly wobbly. I lifted up something that was way too heavy and could only get it to the top of the ladder by putting it onto one step, getting on a step, putting it on another step, getting on the step, so I knew it was too heavy. The ladder wasn't quite long enough to get me up into the attic space, but I thought I could stretch. There was no one around to help me because I'd sent him away. The only 2 things that I hadn't done was I hadn't taken any drugs and I hadn't been drinking. But otherwise, every health and safety no-no I'd done, to the point where at the top of the ladder was a big red circle with a footprint and a cross through the centre of it. And that was the thing I stood on. And as I lifted the bucket to get it up into the loft, it started to move and I went with it. And of course, I didn't want to damage my visage, so I decided to throw the bucket to one side and land on my feet, which I did, but I landed on my tiptoes and I ruptured my calf muscle, which I thought was originally a Achilles tendon which had gone. I've never had that happen, but I thought that's probably what it feels like. So the dogs started barking because they heard the noise, and everyone came out to find out what was going on. And there was I, sprawled across the garage floor with this plastic bucket which had shattered. And I phoned a friend of mine and said, I think I've ruptured my Achilles tendon. He said, no, you definitely haven't, because you wouldn't be talking to me on the phone. You'd be writhing around on the floor with tears in your eyes. And he came round and realised what I'd done, strapped me up, put me on crutches. And it took about 4 weeks before I could walk properly again and got back to normal. So my lesson was, because that could have easily been far worse, that even that could have been fatal, I'm being told. That's coming back from the producer right now. Yes, it could have been fatal. And it just told me, even though it was the last job of the day, how stupid to have done that stuff, because I was then in a rush. So everything just had to be planned properly, which up until that point it was. And now, as you can see, my petrol central is truly petrol central. I'm delighted with it. I've got everything in there that I want to have in there and nothing more. And I've still got a little extra space, even after I put all my things in, should something else crop up that tickles my fancy. That, ladies, is my story and my Kondo experience, which I can only just recommend. And just one drawer, once you've just done one drawer, you see the difference and feel the difference, and it will inspire you to just do one after that, because you don't need to do it all in one hit. Our journey was probably 6 months in total, and we didn't rush anything, but it's the time that it took to just gradually work through one place, one room at a time to get us to where we are. So I will now pass you back to your hostess.
Oh,
so I haven't fallen over, I've just dropped the phone.
I know if we were live together, we would be able to speak and hear each other more, but we're just going to go with the flow. So thanks, Snow. So ladies, I'm conscious we're on the sort of home straight. We've gone slightly over, but I knew there was a lot to share with you. I'm not going to worry about all where the lines are. I wanted Snowy to share that with you because whilst obviously I could have shown you the photographs, that's so personal to him. And hey, Minnie, I know, laugh out loud to this grey hair. I think I've been posting a few things somewhere in the Facebook wall myself. I thought I had. But I wanted him to share it with you. Let me just shut the door because it really was emotional. And those were the words that I said, physical, emotional, and spiritual. And I'm not kidding when I looked, so his car, the ladder, the file, the proximity to all of those things, he could have been killed. He certainly, as our window cleaner said, who was saying about another of his friends who had fallen off a very low garage roof without proper ladders, he could have been paralyzed. I mean, seriously. So that very next day, I was taking him to the station every day because he couldn't do the walk. He was taking taxis. He had his crutches. I didn't make a big thing about it. You know, as you know, I post on Facebook here and there about it because I didn't want it to take away from the project. But I knew at some point it was something to share because it was such a lesson. So he bought much stabler ladders, bigger ladders, lighter ones. It is the only thing he's allowed himself to hang in his garage so that they are accessible. But yes, it was a real lesson again in looking after yourself and not just jumping and thinking, oh, I'll just lean over here. But one of the big things, and it's nice to see you're here as well, Minnie, is the partnership and the planning. Now, even if this is you doing it yourself, for example, I know, Nikki, you're going to be moving back from Ireland. It's actually partnership with yourself as well. But if you have a partner that you don't want to horrify or overwhelm, you want to include them in it. And if they're resistant to it, then again, it's about you doing your part of it and then leaving their part. But for me, and you can hear for Snowy, it was really about this sense of lightness, of shedding. And I knew that it was time to do that. So being partnership and planning, having a timeline versus running and failing, running at something and then letting it go because you're tired and you're fed up. We had the whole of Easter up in Aldborough by the seaside. We didn't think, hey, it's a 4-day weekend, we need to Kondo, because we planned it. Same as our holiday, same as, a number of weekends, the bank holiday. One of the bank holidays we were away, the other we had a complete Kondo weekend. But here's the thing, and I really mean this, I really enjoyed it. One of the weekends, another client, Pam, who, as you know, is in the Golden Circle, she wanted to sort her office out. So when I was doing Sparkle Central, Pam was my accountability buddy and I was hers, and she was sorting out her office. And she just said the difference it made by sweeping her desk, shredding, buying a shredder, having a bonfire, having a barbecue and some cocktails going on as her husband was supporting her with it, and sorting it out. And the difference it's made to her, feeling that she wants to go into her office versus squeezing in and shoving some things out of the way and piles of papers where you're thinking, oh, I must keep that just in case. Now I have a box in here that's blue, that's Fortnum coloured, that there. Now that is where I keep I might just look at that one day and it's starting to creep up. So I know that probably by the end of this week, that will have been weeded out again, because there'll be things in there I don't know I've got anymore, and there'll be things in there that I've been looking for. But the things I don't know I've got anymore, I probably don't need anymore. And I'm not letting that pile creep up, because this is the thing. The next thing is maintenance, because it's like anything. It's like going to the gym and getting to that sort of your ideal, quote, weight, shape, whatever. You have to keep going. You have to keep the maintenance. You don't have the great, big job that you'd had initially, but you have to, as you know, keep the deal that you made with yourself. So what I'm now doing is, when I bought something on the weekend, I bought a beautiful jumper, gold and silver, and just really nice in a sale. Jumper in, jumper out. So it's like, I don't need any more jumpers, but I don't mind trading up or trading differently. So as something comes in, something has to go out. Otherwise, it's not coming in. And that's quite fierce, because as I look at a jacket, for example, I bought a really lovely pink jacket in cruise sale. I thought to myself, yeah, I have got one I don't like very much. Doesn't fit me in the same way. I've lost a bit of weight recently, and Ellie knows why, because that's a whole other story. And I just thought, actually, yeah, I'll let the other one go. Someone else can enjoy that, and I'm going to enjoy this one that fits me really sharply and I like better. So again, there's this flow. And that's how, so I now have a pile in the corner of a bedroom, which is the letting go pile. So I don't just chuck things or think I'll do that later. I take them out of the wardrobe, fold them up, put them in the pile, and then periodically they go in a big bag, they go to the recycling. But that pile is always there. It's like a stockpile, if you will. So that I feel that it's a constant flow of things. It's a flow of things in and out. Same with paperwork. What we did, ladies, and this is something that often people forget, when you've achieved something, you know, whatever that might be, but we certainly felt we had achieved something, sticking with and doing this and actually having quite a lot of fun and loads of dinner conversations with other friends who'd be like, oh God, don't tell me about this, I need to do this. We thought we've got to celebrate. So despite the fact that Snow had been on crutches, a couple of weeks later, where we literally put the sort of bow on top of her things, I said to Snowy, I've ordered red ribbon. He was like, oh, woman, for heaven's sake, what are you going to do with red ribbon? I said, I'm going to tie it around the front of our porch, and we're going to cut it. And I wrote Marie Kondoed on the red ribbon. We had a glass of Prosecco each, and we literally sat on the doorstep and chatted about it before cutting the ribbon. Now, I know this sounds whimsical, but actually it was really important to acknowledge that we'd done that, rather than just like, yeah, on to the next project, or wasn't that fun and what should we do next? We actually stopped and celebrated, which again, when you've done something that you're really thrilled about, I always say to a client, how will you celebrate? And often they hadn't even thought about how they'd celebrate. So who else has anyone, well, Minnie, I know if you're on, you're in your journey at the moment, and what have you maybe taken from this? If you are able to type, it would be lovely. Any comments from anyone about what they've either taken or what they're actually going to think about or do? Because as again, I'm not saying that I had lots of stuff to necessarily get rid of that meant a lot to me. I just knew that I didn't know what I had. And that was the worst part of it. Excuse me. So it's made a big difference to our confidence, our self-confidence, if you will, as far as, yeah, of course, open that, or yeah, I know where that is, or actually you take this, and, you know, finding this microphone today. I didn't know I had this microphone, this one. I found it in the sorting out, and I was thinking I was going to buy a video microphone. And of course, I bought one years ago, tucked it away, didn't know I had it still. So, ladies, I am going to bring us into land. If you're listening to the recording, do continue to comment or ask any questions. I love that, you know, Mary said, how did you sort your bags? Well, I've answered that. And I love the fact that some of you have this on your horizon. And I hope that this has inspired you, or kind of given you a taste of how you might do it, your version. Watch the program if it appeals to you. There's lots of clips of her on YouTube. But it really has, I would say it was a really emotional experience. And the trick now for us is maintenance. And also, I know we've inspired people. I have a colleague who looks after a lot of my social media in America, and Kathy showed her husband some of the pictures that I posted about Snow's garage. And her husband, Mike, who is a fellow petrol head, he has done exactly the same formula in his garage, and that's all the way across the pond. So I am going to love you and leave you. We, as our Career Sparkle Zone, will gather together again on the 4th of September with a call about decisions and decision making and avoiding doubting yourself. I will continue to be in touch with you on a little Sparkle soundbite each week. And obviously a number of you have your Sparkle Zone renewal on your horizon. We will come to you in good time, support you with your decision. Caroline will help you with that. And for so many of us, we will be together live on the 12th of September in the RAC, at the RAC, the Royal Automobile Club on Pall Mall. There are 7 seats left if you're still tempted. and you think that you might be able to attend, it would be amazing to see you. I know a couple of you have got things in your diary and you're kind of conflicted with them. But I truly hope this has given you food for thought. Any comments or further questions, please leave them in our little Facebook wall, which is completely private. And I have enjoyed sharing this with you. One of the things, the bigger other lessons, is you can see the sort of, that's my scratchy writing, but that's how I hosted this whole call. I didn't have to write out a script. I didn't have lots of cards. I use these all the time, and with the benefit of video, you can see it's just, I started with the why, where that side, why now, Marie Kondo herself, little details, and you can fit a whole morning probably of content onto something like that. So that's a little bonus to the bonus. So ladies, I want to wish you a great rest of the summer slowdown, however it is manifesting in your world. It will be lovely to read any of your comments if you want to add them later on. And I am going to wish you a great rest and a great rest of your day. And I have got that quote somewhere from Marie Kondo, but she says about to deal, you know, with your future, with your things. It's about letting go of some of your past. It's not ignoring your past, but it's letting go of it. And I can you can sense from Snowy. The day I did actually write in the comment, he was virtually hysterical with his bivouac full of stuff. I went outside and I said, "What's going on? How are you doing?" He said, "I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't know where to start. I can't bear it." So I sort of shook him. And I shook him and I said, you know, hang on, you've got to sort of, you know, take a breath. As you heard him say, I put a ball hat on him, gave him an extra layer, made him a cup of coffee and a peanut butter sandwich, which always, you know, cures all sorts of things. And then we started doing things together, and I saw he was off and I left him to it. He did the same for me in my office when I needed stuff moving, and he just said, "Look, just let me clear the slate for you." So this is in our kitchen, ladies. It's probably maybe back to front. I printed it off. It reminds me, I see it with my breakfast. The space in which we live should be for the person we are becoming now, not for the person we were in the past. And I see that every day. I'm not ignoring my past. I love my past. But at the same time, I love living in the present with space for the future. So until the next time, Snowy's bringing Jeffrey Hound, his alter ego, in to say goodnight to you. This hound is so patient. He's been woken up. Anyway, ladies, it's lovely to be with you, and look forward to being in touch again soon. Bye for now. Bye, everyone. And I can't find my mouse. Bye.